This is Jean-Marc talking about the quick guide, how you can start writing marketing that convinces and commands attention. B2B marketing copy is not rocket science. It just involves thinking about the words that make up your marketing in a different way. The biggest change is going to be keeping your customer top of mind with all that you write. We'll cover some ways I found effective for doing that. So when it comes to copy, I started off thinking copy was like this magical thing that only specific people could do. I was consistently jealous of folks that could afford the super expensive courses and classes from such and such expert at such and such organization. And I made it my goal to try to glean as much as I could for free. But it turns out, like with most things in life, you learn more from experiencing it rather than reading about it. So I actually learned my copywriting skills by writing copy. And in time, I was able to have the privilege to work with teams that were featured on outlets such as Refinery 29, MTV, Cosmopolitan, and etc. But enough about that. Let's talk about the simple tips that I found for writing good copy, not complicated. And what you find is that copy is more like talking to people. It's not something you typically have to overthink. You can sound more natural. You can actually sound like a human being. All right. So here are some tips that I found for writing great copy. It's going to be one, keep it simple. Two, keep it toned. Three, keep it action oriented. Four, start at your prospect's level. Five, tell them what they have to do. And six, insert an overarching story if applicable. Now let's talk about each of these quickly. Keep it simple is exactly what it says. If you can keep difficult words out of your copy, do so. Instead of saying receive, try the word get instead. Instead of using words like abundant, unless you're talking to a specific target market that's into that word, instead of using that word, maybe use a word like full. Think of the simplest word you can use. It's a copywriting adage that I'd read a while ago. It said, no one ever went broke by underestimating the intelligence of the public. So, in the most crass term possible, keep it simple. Songs are written this way. Don't you notice that? They speak more towards what people want to say than the right polished things to say. Now, keep it toned, again, is going to go back to the idea of keeping it tight, keeping it just brief. Next, you want to keep it action oriented. So in marketing, you will see calls to action, just like the one you'll see at the bottom of this post. What does it say? It says, get my guide now. So think of things that are written in the present tense and actually involve some kind of action. So I want this. Download now, access my free class. You can get the idea in action. And you also want to include the idea that it's going to happen immediately. Even if there's a form, even if there's another part to it, adding that immediacy in the button I found helps, and others have reported it helps as well. So if you have a button and it's going to lead to a form to fill out for a guide so then they can download it, say download now. It doesn't mean that they'll necessarily get the form or ebook or whatever your lead magnet is immediately, but it helps to guide them. This is exactly what's I'm doing this for. This is what I plan to have happen eventually from taking this action. Start at your prospects level, meaning think about what it's like from their point of view. A lot of the stuff is super common sense. But for example, I had a time in my life where I was really struggling with weight, grew up a fat kid, had a lot of problems with that. When I was looking to change my life, you could most reach me if you were able to start at that place. So think of where your prospect is starting at. If you're selling health foods or you're selling a health regimen, start with hey, I started where you are. I struggled. I had all these issues. And if you look at it closely, you'll see some of the best marketers and the best salespeople are able to go to that place. They're able to go where the prospect is, talk directly to them, tell them what they have to do. Now, this typically goes in line to where you have a CTA or a call to action. When you're wanting people to do a specific thing, give them specific instructions. So it's not too much to say, hey, scroll to the bottom of the page, find the button that says get my guide now, and click that. Insert an overarching story if applicable. Where this can be helpful is longer form content, I find. So to keep it more fun, you want to find a theme. So for example, something like baseball. If you were writing a white paper on time management and you chose your theme as baseball, you might have sections such as how to cover your bases with time strategies, or three strikes and you're out, time management no-nos to avoid. You get the picture. Finally, we'll end with tips for writing effective messaging, because messaging is going to be much shorter than, say, writing a post, writing something extensive like a white paper, but nonetheless, it's still important to talk to your prospects in such a way that they eventually become interested in doing business with you. Here are a few quick tips, not going to belabor these points. First, focus on your messaging on them. We've been talking about how to keep your stuff focused on your leads. Next, use the least amount of words needed to get your point across. Use paragraph spaces religiously. If you have a big amount of content for some reason and you can't get it smaller, go ahead and take a paragraph space. Decide who you are and let it shine. This is one I have discovered, and it's one of those things I'd heard about, couldn't understand it, wrap my head around it until I started experiencing it. And I said, oh, that's what they were sharing about. So, one thing that is important to me is positivity, being upbeat, being interested in people. And if you ever check out my values on saint313.com or wherever they happen to be around here, I'm not sure, but you're going to see that values I commonly state are honesty, giving, and vulnerability. And if you look at some of my content, you're going to start seeing those things shine through. And I like to inject part of my personality. And now that I'm living out west, I dig the word howdy. Dig the word. So when you get an email from me, you just might get the word howdy, because that's who I am and that's who I'm also choosing to be in business. That's a powerful thing that you can use as well. So think about the qualities that make up who you are, what you're excited to share with people, and what your values are. And feel free to let that shine through your emails, your messaging, everything you do, because people essentially want to do business with people, not robots, not plain sales letters. They want to connect, engage, trust, and essentially pay people. So feel free to do that. And lastly, end your messaging with a question if at all possible. This allows you to keep the prospect or lead's attention and guide them to the sort of response that you want them to make. Now, this has been Jean-Marc talking about the quick guide on how to write marketing that convinces and commands attention. Thanks for listening. Chat with you soon. Peace.